Hey there, Alexander. So more essays from you. Great. Let's take a look at this one. Now, this is one with two different types of charts. Okay, fine. Let's take a look at what you wrote. The graphs in question represent total special trade zone member income from 1990 to 2000 and global market share exports in 2000 according to IMF World Bank. All right, good. The total income is measured in billions of US dollars. The following countries were a part of we're part of the global market share exports 2000. Okay, good. I'm glad you mentioned them all. That was a smart thing to do. I'm not sure if we talked about this in one of your earlier task ones, but you have to absolutely mention all of the different things at least once. So all of the different categories once at least. Okay, so overall, the peak of total income was reached in 1997, and Benzland and Jamesland were the two biggest export countries in 2000. Let's see. Let me just check your data and make sure it's okay. Let's see. Green, Benzland, yeah, and Jamesland. Yep, that's what you said. Good. Okay, lovely. Total income was on a steady rise from 1991 to 1997, from approximately this to this. Every few years, the income plateaued. Okay, you spelled the plateaued wrong. As it is seen in 1990, 1991, and 1992, 1993. All right, let me just check your data. Okay. I am always, here's the thing. When you have a chronological chart, I'm always a big supporter of saying where the figures began and where they ended. It's just like a story. So when you're telling a story, it's important to know what that beginning is and what that end is. And then, of course, all those key things in the middle. So for me, it would have been important to hear where the figures actually began in 1990, since that's where the line graph begins. Okay? So let's see. Yeah, so you started talking about the steady rise, but I would have started a year early with 1990, okay? All right, let's see. This is incorrect. You don't want since to this. You want from 1997 to 1999. There was a slight decline with around, you could have said this a little more fluently. Where are you talking about that slight decline? Okay, fine. Just from 1997 to 1999, there was a slight decline of around 10,000. Okay, in 2010, income returned. Now, it shouldn't be present perfect because all this is taking place in the past. There's absolutely no relevance to the present, and we know when it occurred, so it should just be returned to the same position as it was in 1997. I'm not really a huge fan of this dash as well. It's better to write things fully out. So at 160,000 would have been more appropriate here. Okay? Okay, let's see. This should be in the pie chart, not on the pie chart. So in the pie chart, it can be seen that the biggest share of exports were in Benzland and Jamesland with 90,000 and 89,000 respectively. Next was Andyland with its, okay, Timsland, Herbertland, Fredland, and Darrenland showed, get rid of A, very similar proportions. You know what? You're giving me tons of data here. There's really no need for it. You could have just said all between, you could have just given a range, which would be so much cleaner, I think, because these are really, really specific numbers. So you could have just said between 46 and 56,000, okay? Which I think would have been better than all these little numbers. The smallest exports were reported by Joe Land and Peter Land, this and this. All right. Now, this for me, even though here's the thing. Let me tell you the good and the bad. The good is you've included all the key features. You've included a very good overview. So as far as task achievement is concerned, you've done a good job. If I had to complain about something, it's just that it's a little too mechanical. In other words, there's really not much in terms of analysis here, okay? I liked that you grouped, but that's you just went from like high to low, and just pretty much just gave me the data. So I wouldn't have really wanted that. Okay, so I would have liked something a little different. So to give you an example of what I think could have been better here, plus this was really long. I mean, I'm assuming this is over 200 words. You could check your word count. But here's what I might have done. This is just one of many suggestions that I could make. Yes to what you did here, okay? And then fine with this as well, okay, because this is a figure that's appropriate. It's a figure all on its own. Then what you might have done is you might have talked about Joland and Peterland being the lowest, and just say that they were, you know, around 12,000, okay? And then, since you've already mentioned the countries, you could have just said the remaining countries all ranged between 46 and 56,000, and then you're out of there. Okay, that's probably one of the things you could have done. Let's see, or you could have done other types of grouping. You could have said that, like, for example, I don't know, X, Y, and Z made up 50%, whereas, you know, you could have done those kinds of groupings as well. It's not that kind of thing is not 100% clear in this graph, in this pie chart, excuse me. But you could have done something like that. But yeah, I mean, basically with what you did, I would have changed that around here. I already told you what I would have liked to have seen in this paragraph. I would have started with 1990, okay, and it just said, and I would have said that this marked, it was a plateau for 2 years, followed by a sudden rise and an additional plateau, and then from there you have a really I wouldn't call it yeah, I guess you could call it a dramatic rise, couldn't you? Because you went from like 135,000 in 1993, and 4 years later you were at 170 something thousand. So that's pretty dramatic. Then you could just say that there was a plateau with that little tiny dip if you really wanted to get specific. Okay. But yeah, I would have started with this. All right, so it's a good attempt overall. I think you could have probably selected some of the information a little better and made it not so long, okay? Because it doesn't show editing skills here. That's what's happened. It doesn't show analysis, and it doesn't show editing skills. The good news is that you've included everything, okay? But remember that in task 1, they're checking to see that you also know how to select and edit information. Didn't really get that with this one. Okay, so okay, let's move on. But other than that, it was good. All right, we're basically talking about the difference between a good score in task 1 and a really good score in task 1. That's why I'm spending so much time analyzing this with you. Alrighty? So let's go now into this essay about computers. Compulsory, naturally. Okay, I like this essay. Good. In the modern world, most of the industries, okay, not most of the industries, but most industries are utilizing computers in some capacity. Computers help to automate or even perform tasks which were manually done by a human. Giving young learners access, without the "and," to computer education will certainly help them in their future careers. In this essay, we'll cover the importance of computer education and give reasons why it should be compulsory. Okay, good. Technology and computer classes at school are a necessary part of general education. Students can learn that computers play a great role both in the industry and at home. For instance, smart thermostat systems at home, or how about this? A smart thermostat system at home is initially a computer which sends signals to an air conditioning system, and the home resident can set the preferred temperature or even schedule when he wants his thermostat. Why are we going on and on about this thermostat? Let me see. By interacting with technology both at school and at home, this can help children build, with a D, up an interest in that particular field, possibly pursue a career science degree. Careful with your spelling. For example, children, because we never write kids in IELTS, can be given school projects with the aim of exploring how computers can be used in their household to solve daily problems, which is a great way to develop a better problem solving, careful with your typing, mindset in a child. Okay. The whole thing about the thermostat system for me was a little irrelevant, which is why I even said that to you. I'm like, why are we talking about this? So what I want you to do again is just look at the actual question that we're being asked here. Is it necessary for children to receive education, computer education in school, or do you think they will develop these skills naturally? Okay, so what is the central idea you're talking about here? It sounds like you're saying, actually, I'm not sure what part of the argument you're describing here. I thought you were talking about the fact that it's necessary in school, but it doesn't seem that way, because then you start talking about this whole thermostat system thing. And that's what really confused me. So what I'm trying to tell you, Aleksandr, is that your central idea in this paragraph isn't really clear. When I read your topic sentence, I thought you were going to go in one direction. You ended up going someplace else with this whole thing here. And then you started kind of talking about school, but I was really hoping for something more focused in this paragraph, okay? So, is it necessary to give children computer education? So something more along the lines of computer classes at school are a necessary part of education. Computers are changing all the time with new software, new programs, new abilities, and for children to keep up to date with all of these, they need to be, these classes need to be a core component of the education system. Okay, so that's more what I kind of expected to read in this paragraph, okay? And then, of course, developing that paragraph further. Let's take a look at the next paragraph. Some people have an opinion that the technological just get rid of that technological expertise can be acquired solely through day-to-day interaction with technology. I personally find this statement to be partially true. Daily exposure, you can see I'm getting rid of your thes. Daily exposure to technology certainly helps with basic understanding of it, but it does not go beyond that. For example, computer education gives a wider overview on the application, I think that's what you mean here, of computers in the different industries, careful with your typing, rather than only domestic use. Okay, this paragraph does not belong here. This paragraph belongs up here, because this is where you're arguing the opposite side of you, the opposite point of view rather, the side that you don't really support. So that should have gone first. Okay, and then I would have liked you to develop it a little more. Rather than this didn't really seem appropriate to me. So I would have liked you to talk about why people think that our day-to-day interaction with computers is sufficient and we don't need to include it in schools. I would have liked you to analyze that a little more. This part, actually talking about computer education, doesn't fit in this paragraph. So like I said, this paragraph should have gone first. You should have developed it a little differently. Your focus here, I felt, was incorrect. You should have supported this idea a little more, explaining why people think this, why there might be some validity to this argument. Okay, and then you could have gone into computers being an important part of education. All in all, I fully support the idea of introducing computer education to children at school, hopefully in the future computer education. All right, can you not repeat computer education so much? You could have just said it will become a compulsory part of the curriculum. All right, so there are some good elements here. There are some problems, though, both in terms of your task achievement and your coherence and cohesion. Your grammar and your vocabulary were fine. However, you've got to be careful with your articles. Too many thes when we don't need them, so I want you to revise some rules about that. All right, go ahead and correct these, return them back corrected. I hope you've understood my suggestions and my recommendations. If not, and if you have any questions, let me know in your next email, and I look forward to seeing what you're going to write next. Good luck.